Hello and welcome to Biomecast. If you're a regular listener of this podcast, you probably noticed that I am indeed not August Clementine. I am Ivy Rose Armstrong, Head of Social Media and Research for Biome News. I am filling in for August Clementine while she studies penguin migration in Antarctica. Today we will be discussing United Kingdom's population as the third installment of our population series on this show. Some housecleaning items before we get into it. Don't be alarmed when you hear August's voice for the ad reading. She pre-recorded it before her trip. Also, some of our listeners may have expected this episode to discuss the population of Russia, but our production manager was having a go at me and changed this week to the UK. And with that, let's start. So, the UK's population has been steadily increasing since 1993, in main part due to migration. Migration makes up 14% of the population. Interestingly, the country would be in a state of decline if that was not the case. Hawthorne Gooseberry, Biome News' general population reporter and biodiversity expert, is on to discuss the United Kingdom's rating on the demographic transition model.
So, I've been on both the United States and Japan installments of this series to discuss where each rank on the demographic transition model. Like those countries, the UK ranks in stage 4 of this model. I explained what each ranking generally means in the US episode, so go back and listen to that if you're confused, or go back and listen to it even if you're not, because it's a great episode. Anyway, the UK ranks in stage 4 because the country has a low birth rate and low death rate because of medical advances. However, due to more adults not wanting to have as many children, the birth rate is fallen below the death rate, yet the population is generally stable and not decreasing.
Very interesting, Hawthorne, and thank you for the extra promotion for past installments.
I really think it's a great podcast, and I'm not much of a podcast guy myself, but this one is great, even if just for August's confident voice. And I'm sure she'll be pleased with such an amazing woman as yourself holding down the fort till she gets back.
Well, thank you, Hawthorne. Where can our listeners find you?
Well, I'm not a social media man, so they'll have to find me on Biome News, reporting about my typical things.
See you there. Thanks, Hawthorne. Though definite overpopulation is a future problem, there is starting to be a strain on housing, careers, and other resources for both foreign and native residents. To discuss these specific strains and what the government plans to do about them, I invited Darcy Woods, Biome News' own governmental expert. Hello, Darcy.
Hello there, Ivy.
So, Darcy, our listeners and I were wondering what the UK government's plan was for curbing the prospective overpopulation issues in the country, and what exactly those issues are.
What a rather interesting topic. So, a few of the big issues are housing, schooling, hospital capacity, and amount of land. So, the UK will need 200,000 to 300,000 new houses a year to meet growing necessity. For schooling, the Department for Education predicts about 7,500,000 schools will be needed in England by 2025. For hospital capacity, there were over 16 million total hospital admissions in 2015-2016. So since that was 28% more than the decade earlier, and the UK has grown around 10% since then, there could be an extreme demand for hospitals in the future. England was recently deemed to be the most overcrowded large nation in the EU, with 426 people per square kilometre. So, generally, population seems to be a low concern for the EU government at the moment. They are publishing studies and information about the population, and that seems to be about it at the moment, being that it is a prospective problem and not a definite one.
Well, thank you, Darcy. Where can our listeners find you?
Anytime. You can find me on Instagram at Darcy Woods News, and I tweet at Darcy_Woods News. You can also occasionally see me as a guest on Biome News. Thanks, listeners, and thanks, Ivy.
So, few solutions have been proposed, but The two most effective-looking ones are generally enacting stronger migrant policies and/or adopting a sustainable population policy to do many things such as accurately determine future population growth in the UK and set targets stabilizing the population level. Policy will ensure that UK takes action to positively affect through aid and intergovernmental activity. This in turn will help stabilize global population. Now for our ad reading. Biomecast is brought to you by Mr. Keenan's AP Environmental Science, now streaming on NBHS, and Channel 6 Biome News. Now, back to the show. Well, that's it for our United Kingdom installment of the Biomecast Population Series. All of this episode's research sources are in the description below. You can listen to the other episodes from this podcast wherever you get your podcasts. You can find August Clementine on Twitter and Instagram at August ClementineCast, and you can find me on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook at Ivy R. Armstrong. We release new Biomecast episodes every Wednesday, so talk to you then. Have a great rest of your day, Biomecast listeners.